Okay, the review for the first part of the final. You're going to experience tremendous deja vu because the first four questions on the final were the four questions that were on the last exam. So it's stuff you already did, but I'm going to do it again. This problem, I give you a value for one of the trig. It's either going to be sine, cos, or tan. You're going to fill in the triangle, you're going to find the missing side, and then you're going to read the values. So now remember, tangent, tangerines or apples. Tangent is the opposite side over the adjacent side. So in this case, you're looking for the hypotenuse. So when you do the formula this time, the numbers I gave you will be on the same side. Usually they're not, right? This time I'm looking for the hypotenuse C. Radical 5 squared, you gotta be careful. This is radical 5 times radical 5, which is radical 25, which is 5. Right? That's how you square it. Times it by itself. Radical 5, radical 5. If you want, I'll write it. This is where I'm getting 5 from. Times a radical by itself, you get the number inside. I mean, I said that in class. 2 times 2 is 4. Ooh, it's going to come out nice. You get 9. So then C is, right, radical 9. So you get 3. Right, take the square root. So the missing side of the hypotenuse is 3. Now I got it. I can read everything off. I mean, this one I was given for free. You can put that down. Some people didn't write it on their test, whatever. To get cotan, you flip it over. Remember, do not under any circumstances rationalize this. You leave the radical on the bottom. Now I just need sine and cosine. Sine is opposite hypotenuse. Remember, read them first. Cosine is adjacent hypotenuse. Read them off and then do the flips. All right, always do the main 3 and then flip the rest of them. So flip this over, flip that over, and done, right? I want to see the triangle. Please put the theta in the correct place, right? Make sure the sides are all there. You need to draw and label the triangle. Show me the missing side, fill everything in, all right? Pretty straightforward. It's not a difficult question. All right, to save time on these, for question 2, the first part, you're saying 25 feet from the base of a tree. So here's my tree, my wonderful artwork. Here's you. You're standing 25 feet from the base of a tree. The tree is 68 feet tall. And it says the angle, I want the angle of elevation from where you're standing to the top of the tree. Now I'm going to make my tree bigger. You want this right here. You're looking for the angle of elevation to the top of the tree. So again, you have a right triangle. You're 25 feet from the bottom of the tree. The tree is 68 feet tall. Now look, you don't have the hypotenuse. You have the opposite side. You have the adjacent side. So the angle that I'm looking for, I'm going to call it theta, is the opposite side, right? The tangent of that angle is the opposite side over the adjacent side, right? This is how you set it up. You draw your picture, you label it, you create your trig guy. Now, I want theta, so how do I do that? I do tan minus 1, right? You take the inverse tan to find the angle. If I give you the numbers and you want the angle, now again, I don't know what the hell angle that is. I have to do this on my calculator. So I hit inverse tan, 68 divided by 25. So as I always do, holding it up, 69.81. 69, I love it. You will get that answer on your test, on the final, I promise. So the point, 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, 1, 2, 3. I need those 3 things. Some of you, again, you just went right here. You're gonna lose a point if you skip any of these. I have to see them both. I have to see the original equation you created, how you get it, like what you'd be typing into the calculator, and then the final answer, okay? Now, the next problem, it says you have a 40-foot wire attached from a bolt on the ground to the top of a flagpole. All right, so here's your flagpole. There's the flag. You have a wire that's attached to the top of the flagpole from the ground. So that says it's 40 feet. And the angle that the wire forms with the ground, okay, so here, the wire, there's the wire, and here's the ground. that angle is 73 degrees. And they want to know how tall is the flagpole. And I'll call it H for height. Again, right triangle. You got to draw and you got to label it. I have to see it. I need to see the triangle before you make the equation. Now you have an angle and two sides, as always. You have the opposite and the hypotenuse. That's the sine, dude. So that means the sine of 73 is H over 40. Crisscross, bring them over. 40 times the sine of 73 is H, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3 is the answer. I have to see it all. I have to see the picture. Step 1, step 2, and then the final answer. So on my calculator, I'm going to do 40 times sine 73. I got 38.25. Same thing. Real simple. It's a couple button presses. 38.25. All right, so again, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Every one of them, you have to have a picture and three things. This is what I'm looking for when I grade it. And if it's missing, then you're going to be missing points. All right, so that's the second question. All right, number 3. I was going to try to fit 3A and 3B on the board together, but I figured I decided against that. You're given two angles. Remember, these for question 3A and B, these are non-right triangles. So sine, cos, tan, this opposite, hypotenuse, all that crap is out the window. If you have a triangle without a right angle, then you don't have a hypotenuse. How the hell are you going to have an opposite and adjacent if you don't have a hypotenuse? So you need law of sines, law of cosines. This one, I give you two angles. Now, I want side B. As soon as you see that, you got to put this down. This is what I'm looking for. So I need that one. Now, then I look at the rest. Now, I don't know anything about side A. So, but I have side C and I have angle C. So check. But I'm missing one very important thing. I don't know that angle, but I do know A and C. So on the side, you're going to take 180. You're going to subtract angle A. You're going to subtract angle C. That's going to tell you what angle B is. You must do this, and I must see this. If you want to lose a point, don't write that. Some people didn't write this on their test. They decided, I don't got to write that down. Why wouldn't you write that down? I have to see this. This is legitimate work on the side. I need to know that number. Now I'm good. I know side C is 12. I know angle C is 75. I don't know side B. That's what I'm looking for. But angle B, I just figured out using my little work there. I know the angles add up to 180. So now I know I can put a 41 there. That's it. You need to show me where this number came from. Even if it takes 2 seconds on the calculator, I have to see it. It has to be justified. Now, again, don't do the full crisscross. I'm not going to cross multiply this over to the B. Why would you do that? Just do the half crisscross. Take this one over to the 12. So you're going to do 12 times sine 41. You're going to leave the sine 75 on the bottom where it is. It's already there on the bottom, right? 12 is above it, right? 12 is above it. Just take the sine 41 and cross it over to the other side. Now, bunch of button presses. What am I going to do? 12 times sine 41. I got 7.87 divided by sine 75. So I get 8.150. Oh, awesome. $8.15. So the side is 8. And again, it seems pretty reasonable. What would not be a reasonable answer? If you got an answer like 0.63, like you press some things wrong or your calculator is in radian mode, you F up. Or if you get something like, 85. There's no way the triangle has one side of 12 and the other side's like 85. Ask yourself if your answer makes sense. This is a reasonable number. It's not that far away from 12, so it's kind of sort of what it should be. All right, I'm going to do the next one. Okay, 3B. Another non-right triangle. So no hypotenuse, no nothing. You have 3 sides, and I'm asking you for an angle, so that's got to be the law of cosines. So I want C. Now, a lot of people, not a lot, people who didn't write this on their task, they just wrote, the A squared, B squared thing. You have to put this there. It's the cos of angle C. The cosine of angle C is now whatever letters you don't have, right? You take the other two letters, and then you put a 2, and you put those letters. You got to be really careful. I mean, you have the formulas, right? The test is open notes. You know, the final exam is no different than your other test. You're allowed to use your notes. So, you know, you have the formulas there. You have no excuse for writing this wrong. A couple people spaced out and wrote the wrong formula on that test. And I mean, that's death. What can I give you? You're lucky you got any points at all. So put ABC in there, bang it out. So the cosine of angle C, A squared, I'm going to save myself a step here, right? 8 squared is 64. 5 squared is 25. And C is 11. Now on the bottom, right, you have 8 for A. B is 5. I think I did this exact question. Might even be the same. On the bottom, right, you have 80. This might have actually been the question on the exam. Oh, whatever. My plus button sticks. I think that's negative 32 on top. It is the same one. This was the question on your test. Oh, whatever. I don't mind doing it. So the cosine of angle C is negative 32. This is the important part. So angle C, how do you find it? You do the inverse cosine. Remember that negative has to be there. So check two things when you do this on the calculator. Make sure you're in degree mode. If you're in rating mode, the whole thing is screwed. It's going to get weird, wacky, wrong-ass number. And you have to make sure you put the negative. So remember, don't press the subtraction button. Press the negative button. So I'm going to hit inverse cosine, negative button, 32 divided by 80. 113.57. Well, it's 113.578. So I'm going to put 113.58 because I like the 2 decimal places. So I recognize that answer. I know that question was on test 3. So it's the same one. But again, just be careful. People, you put the wrong number here. You know, people had these reversed. They had the C here and the B here. You have no excuse to get this wrong. You have the formula. You have the notes. So use them. All right. There you go. Lower cosines. And then one more. All right. Problem 4. The mother of all problems. This is the nastiest, hardest question. Now, it's going to say on your test, hint, solve for y, or hint, solve for x. You would be very foolish to ignore the hint. Now, this one will say hint, solve for y. So you most certainly should solve for y. It's going to be much easier. It's still not an easy question, right? This is step 1, solve for y. Now, you're going to take what y is equal to. Go back to the original equation. Write it exactly the same way, just don't write the y there, right? Just erase the y and put a big ass blank. This thing is going to go there. But see, write this first. This is easier for you, right, mentally. Then take the 1 minus 3x and put it there. Now, if you want to be real paranoid, do this on the side. I'm okay with this. I'm going to multiply it out. 1 times 1 is 1. You get a negative 3x, right? Make the foil rainbow. Whee! There's the rainbow. You get negative 3x twice. Negative 3 and negative 3 is negative 6. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. X times x is x squared. That's what's going to go here. Now, here's where, again, this is where the screw up happened. I would say half the people in the class, in both classes, screwed this question up because of that minus sign and this plug-in step. Almost everybody did this just fine. People did this fine. This is the step where they messed up. You got to take this and put it over here. I don't like it in that order, but I'll leave it in that order. Just so you all don't have a heart attack. That I would reverse this. I would put 9x squared minus 6x plus 1. But it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. But this is the important part. You are taking away these 3 things. You are taking 10x squared and subtracting 1. You are subtracting negative 6, and you are subtracting positive 9. You are subtracting 3 quantities, 3 things, 3 terms. So you must switch. This is where people screwed this up on the test. And then you couldn't factor it. You must distribute that minus sign to all 3 things. So what happens is switch, switch, switch. They all change. So you're going to have a negative 1, a positive 6x, and then a negative 9x squared. Now, before I even do with this 15, I got to clean this up. I have 10x squareds, and I'm going to lose 9. If you don't switch that sign, you're going to have 19. That's over. Problem is done right there. So 10 minus 9 is 1. Yay! It's by design. Who do you write next? You put the x next. Why? Because that's how we're used to seeing it. And then this -1, throw it at the end. Well, well, well. That's looking like what we want, right? I want 1x squared here. I design it that way. This problem is rigged to come out that way, that it will factor. So now you're going to subtract 15. And I'm going to have to move this up in a minute because you won't be able to see it. -1 take away 15 is -16. Remember, equals 0. I don't need that anymore. So I'm going to write this up over here because I'm not going to have a lot of room. So I get x squared plus 6x minus 16 equals 0. If people got to this step and it didn't factor and they didn't know what to do, the mistake was right here. The mistake will always be there. You have to switch those signs. This is very tricky because of that. But I know the one on the final is like that. That's the reason that I put it like this on the practice test and the review sheet. It's the same question again and again and again. I would even go back to test 3 and do that one again. It's very similar. So this does factor. You need two numbers that multiply to 16 that make a 6. That has to be 8 and 2. And it has to be a positive 8. Right? Positive 8 take away 2 is positive 6. When you multiply those numbers, you get -16. So you know it works. So x is either -8 or x is 2. Yay, I'm all done. Well, no, you're not quite done. Here's where you go back. Don't go back here. You don't need to go back there. Now, the top one. Why don't you use the top one? I pointed this out in one of the other videos when I taught you the nonlinear. The top equation has squares in it. When you plug into that, you're going to end up with something like this, like x squared equals 4, say. And then you get x equals plus or minus 2. The top equation is going to give you false, extraneous solutions. You do not, under any circumstances, plug back into the top one. You plug into the one you built. You built a nice equation that lets you find the value of y when you know x. So I already know that x is -8, and I know that x is 2. Plug them in there. So when x is -8, now you're going to get a big number here, but it's okay. So you get 1, negative times negative is positive. Don't forget the sign switch. So you get y is 25. So when x was -8, y was 25, right? There's your x, there's your y. That's your first pair where these graphs meet. When x is 2, you replace the x with a 2. 3 times 2 is 6, and you're subtracting. So here you're going to get y is -5. So when x is 2, y was -5. That's the second point where those graphs meet. You have some weird-ass hyperbola and a line. They meet twice. They don't meet 4 times. The bottom equation is a line. It can't hit anything more than once or twice. I mean, you have this weird thing in a line. They meet twice. Right? This is not a circle. And it's not an ellipse either. If it had a plus, it would be an ellipse. But you don't care about the graph. All you need is where they meet. So again, very carefully. Solve for y, plug it in, multiply it out. Make sure you distribute that minus sign very carefully. Switch everybody. Organize your terms, right? It's x2, x1, none. You always keep them x2, x1, no x, right? Organize them correctly. Don't write them weird and backwards. I mean, I do occasionally see this, and I find it absolutely ridiculous. Don't write it like that. What the hell is this? You're going to factor? We don't do that. That's not the proper form. Put it in the proper form, factor it. Watch your signs carefully. Because again, if you get the signs wrong, if you get x wrong, you got y wrong. Right? If you plug in the wrong value for x, then you're going to get the wrong value for y. And you're going to lose a big chunk of points in that question. It's worth 8. So you don't need to lose 3 or 4 points on that one, on this question. I know it's hard. It's the hardest one on the whole final. The second half of the final, which I'll shoot question 5 through 8 later in the week. Much easier questions, way easier. But this question is the great equalizer. You really have to have your skills together, and you have to really watch what you're doing very carefully to get it completely right. A lot of people nailed it, but there are an equal amount of people that screwed it up. So if you messed it up on test 3, don't mess it up in the final. All right. So good luck on the first part, the final. Again, do everything that I did. match what I do. You'll be fine.